Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome, everybody, into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Podcast Network. My name is Joe Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my two co-hosts, former Buffalo Bills, John Fina and Jerry Ostrowski. You can find them on Twitter at Ostrowski_Big O, nailed it, and at John Fina. So good to have every single one of you guys joining us. Please do us a favor. Please like, please subscribe. Whatever platform you are viewing this live broadcast on, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And if you're listening in post as a podcast, again, if you ever miss a live broadcast, we are on every podcast platform. Just search Overreaction Buff and we will pop up there. But please like, please subscribe there as well. It is so good to have all of you joining us in the chat room as well, in the comment section on YouTube. I would tell you, if you're watching on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, jump over to YouTube. That's where everybody hangs out. But with that, what are we? We are about a month away from the NFL draft. Free agency. We're still in the throes of free agency, and the Buffalo Bills are one of those teams that have a tendency to make some moves at the end of free agency, kind of as the free agency dog days are kind of draining or dragging on. You'll find the Bills do some stuff, but this has been a relatively slow news week. But gentlemen, how are you guys?
I'm doing well. Fina, when you did the whole head shake thing, all I could think about was put the pudding in the pop and the pop in the pudding. I could think about was Eddie Murphy doing Bill Cosby and the pudding pops.
Yes.
No, going well. I think that obviously it was kind of a down week in Buffalo as far as news goes. The big splash signings were made a few weeks ago when free agency started. Obviously, though, it's funny. I mean, it feels kind of I don't know, man. It's almost like when you're a kid and it was Christmas and you asked for the Red Ryder BB gun and you went downstairs and the BB gun was not there. Fired up about who we signed, but still hung up a little bit on the fact that we'll play 6 games without 2 of our key defensive line signings. Guys that I think that we were relying heavily on. I still, to this day, truly believe the Hoyt signing was made with cash savings in mind. They got a good player in for less money because of the suspension and went ahead and traded off the 6 games to get a lower cap number. Now, obviously, Ogunjobi's his contract has been released. It is, I believe, a couple million less than it was. I think it's in the 6s now, not the 8s. But yeah, I mean, it's I kind of have this feeling. I know we got some guys and some things like that, but I almost feel like the first 6 games of the season are kind of be okay. Josh, we're back at it again. let's go ahead and see if we can get these 6 games under our belts, and you can take care of us. And the cavalry's coming. I promise.
Hey, Jerry.
6 games.
Jerry,
what?
Don't you remember what happened? He finally looked behind the Christmas tree, and there was the Red Ryder BB gun.
Yeah.
So I anticipate there's still a little bit more to play out, a little bit of a surprise. Don't shoot your eye out, Jerry. Have a little patience. I also think we're kind of over as a fan base. We're overplaying the needs insofar as top 2 scoring offense. I can't remember if we were number 1 or number 2. We need to work. We need to make sure that we're right on the offensive side of the ball. We've played well on defense. We've had a couple key pieces. They might not start until later, Bosa right away, but this might not be splash signings. And they may think we don't need splash signings.
Well, Brandon Beane said as much. Brandon Beane kind of said going into it, right, that there would, but he did it last year. He's done it every year the last couple of years, and the Bills are quote unquote up against the cap. I saw someplace that they can clear tens of millions of dollars in cap space if they need it, which I'm sure that they will, or if something comes available. Clearly, they still need a corner opposite Christian Benford. They might go into the season with Dane Jackson, which I want to clear something up real quick. As the title of the show is decisions based mainly around James Cook, who is Last we heard, lobbying for $15 million a year. And then obviously Christian Benford, whose contract number only pretty much went up when Stingley got signed last year to $30 million a year. So who knows where that's going to be. We'll talk about that in a second. But a couple of weeks ago, I made the comment that the Bills only had 2 rostered corners on in the depth chart. And it was true. They only had 2, Dane Jackson and Christian Benford. They have several corners on the roster, and the depth chart has since been removed from the Buffalo Bills website. The corners on the roster currently, Christian Benford, Daquan Hardy, Jamarcus Ingram, who had some flashes last year, Dane Jackson, obviously. Taryn is a nickel, and then Corey Couch is listed as a defensive back, and then obviously we know about Cam Lewis. I expect they're going to, and Jerry, rather, you've got a special guest coming up on the Big O Show this week in Joe DeLeon from the Believe Network, who is a draft specialist. I think that they're going to answer some of these questions in the draft. The question is it DL round 1 and corner round 2, or is it corner round 1, DL round 2, or do they move up and do kind of like Josh Allen, and they got Tremaine Edmonds in the same draft? Do they move up and get 2 picks in the first round? Thoughts?
Well, I think the big thing is availability. I mean, who's available earlier? If you got some guys in cornerback that are sliding, you make that trade and you move up to get one, because here's the thing. And I think that I personally am really, really hung up on the corner spot.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is this, and I don't think it's a sure thing that Benford comes back. I think the Bills want Benford back
next year, after this year.
Yes, I think the Bills want Benford back. I think the Bills should personally find a way to give him what he needs now, because and here's the thing, I don't think that he commands a $30 million paycheck.
No.
Okay, and I know that's what
maybe next year, if they don't sign him this year, that might be what he gets next year.
And that's the point I'm getting ready to make, is the fact that if you sign him for a little bit more than what maybe you think he's worth, or what the market says he's worth now, you probably save $5 to $10 million a year next year because you sign them early. It's what a lot of teams do. Philadelphia does it. They will sign guys early, knowing that, yeah, we might have overpaid a little bit now, but we're going to save a lot in the long term. And to me, what they do in Buffalo at that position, he is prototype, and they've got to find a way to keep him. Here's the other side of that. You got to go ahead and find somebody on the other side that's young, because if you can't sign him, then you have another guy sitting over there that's ready to go, that you can groom, and in another 4 years, you're in the same position.
Right.
So hopefully, to me anyway, I think corner is a very, very pressing need, especially in the way this defense is played, especially what they like to do. We had Marlon Kerner on last week on the Big O Show, talked a lot about what they do schematically and how many at-the-line checks they make according to what routes are being run. It's much more complex than just going out and putting your hand on a guy's chest and playing press man, which is why I truly believe that Kaiir Elam was not a fit in Buffalo. He'll probably play well in Dallas, and everybody will go, see, you got him away from it's just the way it is, folks. It's players fit in certain things. So my feeling is you got to find a way to get Benford locked up. If you feel you're giving him a little bit more now, you're going to save on the back end. And even with that, you've got to get another young corner in here, because, yeah, Jackson's fine, Ingram's fine. We don't need fine. We need guys that can play.
No, I agree with what Jerry said, but he's not a $30 million a year guy. I would dangle something in front of him and stand pat, maybe at the 24, 25, make the bonus, make it make sense. But I think it also relates to James Cook, and insofar as I've been thinking about this a lot. I think you let James Cook just play it out. You don't make a move on that. You secure Benford, but don't get killed on it. You draft at corner, because I agree with Jerry. Find the guy that plays the game like we play it now, as he played it in college, and develop that talent. I think and to agree with you, and I hate just agreeing with everything you say, Jerry, but you make such great points. We do have
Call my wife.
No, She ain't hearing any of that. We do have satisfactory guys, but I don't think in your regard that we have guys that are really lockdown type guys, or guys that are going to steer offenses to a different game philosophy, due in part to who's on that other side of the ball. Now, the easy thing to say is go out and get that guy, but Jerry can tell you, Joe, you know it, everybody knows it. The number one, the draft is a crapshoot, and number two, the list of special guys out there is pretty damn short. And if it's a crapshoot, you hope you got the right guy, attitude, right fit, right development, but it doesn't always work out. I like the idea of dangling something in front of Christian Benford, have him consider where he is, the opportunity to play in this defense, this team, chase a ring, and give him a fat signing bonus, and let him bear some of the risk, is the short way of saying it.
When you look at some of the top corners in this draft, okay, obviously Travis Hunter will be off the board. That is a guy that's a top 3 guy, probably unobtainable. Then you get a guy like Will Johnson from Michigan, okay, full toolbox kind of guy. He did get injured in September. He's full go, ran great times in his pro days. He's a guy that could be slipped down maybe into that 12, 13, 14, 15 area where you can trade up. Siobhan Revell Jr. from East Carolina, Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. The guy I really like is a guy named Troy Amos from Mississippi. Big guy, instinctual guy, and he is a zone corner. So, you have to look at that. And then the other thing is this is another area in the secondary that you got to keep an eye on is Johnson's not getting any younger, right? He's been banged up a little bit. And, do you start looking for maybe that replacement? A guy like Jahdae Barron from Texas, number 1 rated nickel corner in the draft, was in the top 5 of the other corner, or the just regular outside corner position, but they moved him into number 1 at nickel. Do you have that need as well? And maybe a guy that can play outside and inside. So I think there are some viable choices for this franchise, especially with 2 second-round picks. You can do a little bit as far as trading up and those kind of things.
I want to come back to that. But before I do, if any of you listening to this or watching this live did not catch the Big O Show last week on a Wednesday with Marlon Kerner, you can still watch it. It's still relevant. It was a great show. As Marlon, former Buffalo Bill cornerback, Marlon Kerner, former teammate of, I believe, these two gentlemen, just went through the conversation of, I loved the question, Jerry, that you asked about, we hear that this is somewhat of an easy defense or an easy fit for corners. And Marlon said it is and it isn't, right? So I believe he kind of phrased it as, for the most part, it feels like it is, but sometimes it's just not. In the case of Kaiir Elam, it wasn't. And what's funny about the crapshoot comment, John, is Christian Benford, Kaiir Elam, same draft, 1 and 6. Their first-round pick, 6th-round draft pick, and the 6th-round draft pick is set to make $26 million a year, while the first-round draft pick is getting shipped off to Dallas to rebuild his career. And hopefully, we all hope that he does well there. Getting back to what you were just talking about, Jerry, because that's a really good observation and a really good conversation piece, because something that nobody's talking about is the fact that NFL defenses morphed and changed, and the Bills were kind of like, Sean McDermott was out in front of that with this whole nickel 4-2, which sometimes we love and sometimes I specifically loathe a little bit, and not wanting to take Taron Johnson off the field, but it made a lot of sense. And now what's happening is NFL offenses are adjusting, including the Bills, and they're becoming more run-centric. And you almost got to wonder if the Bills look at what kind of is happening in the NFL and make a shift there too, and maybe start moving more towards a traditional 4-3 in a replacement to Taron, a guy that's not going to play all of the snaps or is the amount of snaps that Taron plays. It's fascinating to think about that, like the chess match that goes on over 4, 5, 6, 7 years of NFL football as teams adjust to what each side of the football is doing.
And that's the beauty of the NFL, right? The evolution of the game, how it changes. But I think, Joe, to what you said, I mean, you got to be playing some pretty deep 3D chess and trying to figure out what is, first and foremost, your divisional rivals are doing personnel wise, and try to guess at what type of offense they're going to run. I think by and large, they're going to stick with what they've done. I like this addition of Hoyt and Bosa because, and I think, it gives us this ability to, we could run a 3-3 type offense, which could become a 4-2 with just two steps toward the ball, either in the A, B, or C gap. I think it really gives us that dimensionality or that ability to bring a variety of fronts that will help the secondary behind them.
And I think John makes a good point. And the fact is, you talk about changing the defense and we talk about needing more cornerbacks, but we've seen it now, with offenses the way they are and the zone read stuff that they're doing and all those different kinds of things. When you look at it, what's more important for Buffalo right now? Is it getting better up front in your defensive line, or is it getting better at corner? I don't think we're going to change schematically. That's why I'm kind of leaning on corner. But the Eagles showed in the Super Bowl, if you can get pressure with 4, your cornerbacks look just fine.
Yeah.
So, but again, that group of guys, they're hard to get, they're hard to find, and they're hard to keep around because you got to pay them.
Yep, for sure.
So, but it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Real quick, the man that I lovingly call, actually Jay Spencer King and I lovingly call the encyclopedia, the real Chris Yankee, says if Benford is going to be a $20 to $25 million cornerback, it would be nice to have a cost-controlled rookie draft pick on the roster, or on the other side of Benford. There's no way they're not drafting 1, if not 2 corners in this draft. There's no way.
I agree. I think as you look across the board, both sides of the ball, and everybody would agree with this, that defense is really our main priority. And specifically interior D-line with the signing of Bosa leaves the edge a little less concerning. So I see D-line, cornerback, could be safety. And Jerry brings up a good point. Maybe somebody could be a corner playing in college that has played some nickel, as a junior or a sophomore, somebody who can play that, contribute. When Taron Johnson went out, I think was it Cam Lewis or Dave Jackson? Cam Lewis playing in his spot. I don't want to say you didn't recognize there was a drop off, but I thought he played well. So that just says to me, you got to get a couple more cornerbacks in here. And I think you look at the history of Benford, if the scouting department is doing what they're doing, there might be another Benford in the second, fourth. I don't know if we have a fourth. I got it written down somewhere, but I think you draft 2 or 3 corners, safety, interior D-line after cornerback if the right one's available. Maybe get 2 of those guys in round 2.
I think the biggest thing for this defense is they have got to bring talent in to create competition. There's really not competition on the defensive side of the ball. Basically, your 11 starters are your 11 starters. There's a couple positions that are up in the air. Of course, safety was one of those last year. You had the injuries during the OTAs that kind of limited that. But really, there hasn't been any big-time competition. Now, I will say this. I think that the Matt Milano restructure has shown that Buffalo might be comfortable with Williams. And, it's a fact where, yeah, we want Matt Milano, but we're not sure if we're going to get old Matt Milano. And we got Dorian Williams, who I think led the team in tackles or was right up there amongst the leaders and didn't play a couple of games when Milano came back. They've got to create some competition at all spots. Mm-hmm. They've got to get, we talk about drafting cornerbacks. They've got to get some more linebackers as well. They've got to create more competition there. So I think that's the biggest thing is when we roll in the training camp, it shouldn't be like, well, we got these 11 guys written in pen. They're going to be your starters. And so be it. I mean, we've got to go into camp on the defensive side of the ball with a bunch of stuff in pencil that you can erase because you've got that competition amongst position groups and guys that are deserving to start, and they're going to have to grind a little more in camp and show, their willingness to compete.
Yeah, I love this from Scott Blakely. Bosa is a rental, need defensive end in the draft as well, which is something that we're not really talking about with the extension. Adrian Epinesa has this year and 1 more year left on his contract, the extension that he got, and then maybe 2. And then you've got the extension from Rousseau. Obviously, Bosa, a 1-year rental. And what's funny, the biggest benefactor of the 2 suspensions with Ogunjobi and Hoyt is probably Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips probably makes this football team for at least 6 games or 8 games would be my guess. Half a season, right?
I agree. But I disagree with going after edge early. I think that's a play for next year.
I agree with that too.
But I also don't, we look at Bosa as a 1-year rental, but what's to say that we don't go ahead and like what he does, and he
likes
doesn't
it here.
And he likes it in Buffalo. He's already talked about the culture and being in a town that actually cares about football in the Northeast. I mean, the guy's made his money, right? You got a chance to win a Super Bowl with arguably the best or one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
The MVP at least, right?
I mean,
the MVP
exactly. I mean, it's like what better situation can you find? I don't think Joey Bosa at this point in his career is going to chase paper. No. I think as long as the Bills are fair with him, I think he'll go ahead and oblige and sign, especially if he has a successful season and an enjoyable season. The successful being he's on the field more than he's off the field with injury. So, you can look at that how you want. I don't necessarily think that's a 1-year rental.
And Joey
Agreed.
Bosa.
And that's the same with Milano too, right?
Yeah,
I mean, he switched down to that, but he could come back again.
And Joey Bosa, of all people, coming to Buffalo from LA, right? Which, and the Chargers are one of those teams that even when they were in San Diego, there was a lot of people that were like, are there really Charger fans? And I know there are Charger fans, but as the resident person on this panel that lived in Columbus, Ohio for 13 years, people in Columbus, Ohio are nuts about the Buckeyes because it's all they have. Are there NFL fans in Columbus? Yes. Browns fans, Bengals fans, believe it or not, a ton of Steeler fans because the 2 Ohio teams have been so bad for so long. But all of them collectively, like we've talked about it on this show. We've talked about it off the air and on the air that the Ohio State Michigan game is bigger in Columbus than the national championship potentially, or even the Super Bowl. Like it's insane there. So that was a genuine comment from him when he talked about going from LA to Buffalo and entering an atmosphere where football is live and die in the environment, which you guys lived in, right?
Unbelievable.
No, I think so too. And I don't agree with Ralph Wilson Sr. I mean, yeah, he made a little more than he did at the 49ers, but he probably could have made more elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the 49ers team that's just in a fire sale right now. I don't agree.
He's signing for $30 million a year if he's healthy, right?
Right.
He probably could have got more if he'd waited.
But the biggest thing with signing Bosa, especially if he has that type of season, the huge benefactor of Joey Bosa being on the field is going to be our other defensive end, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where and I'm sorry, his name slipped my mind.
Rousseau.
Rousseau's not going to be getting double teamed. Rousseau's going to see a lot of single blocks and things like that. So it probably makes him a better pass rusher just having Bosa on the field.
Yeah,
that's absolutely true. Third and long situations, you got to choose, Joe. Who we sliding to? Who are we going to bring the running back for? Who are we going to chip? I mean, and in that with Rousseau. And Jerry, I say it every time. He's not the pass rusher that I want. He is definitely the run defender that we need, to be fair to the guy. But I think this really, at least mentally, opens up opportunities for him, saying, I know that I got this other guy on the other side of the field. There's a chance that I'm one-on-one here. And it's got to be your best move.
I'm excited to go to training camp because I want to see some things this year, but I still think we're missing the boat of not at least experimenting in the preseason, especially if a guy like Solomon or somebody steps up to where we can get some mismatches size there, with Solomon being shorter, getting under taller tackles, those types of things. I think we're missing the boat on not letting him rush inside on a true blue passing down. Length gives guards fits, and
sure.
and Rousseau has length and he's got size. Personally, I think we're missing the boat, but then again, that's why I don't coach in the NFL.
So what I hear you saying is you got Rousseau at the left end, or sorry, Javon Solomon at the left end. You got Rousseau over the right guard, right?
Yes.
And then Bosa on the other side, and then Ed Oliver. You could actually have 2 3s, 2 5s, skinny the linebackers in a little tighter. Right, bring the safeties down a little bit further outside, And then you can run some games. Can you imagine a 3-man game with Matt Milano, Javon Solomon, and Greg Rousseau mixing it up on the right side of the offensive line? I like that.
Right. Even if he doesn't get to the quarterback, his length and getting his arms up create huge problems from passing lanes for quarterbacks. You could do some stuff where you could drop him to the middle and blitz and let him kind of play the middle of the field and bat stuff down. I mean, I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with him. I think he's much more well-rounded than people give him credit for. But then again, like I said, that's why I'm doing podcasts on a Sunday night in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and don't have an office with a bunch of pictures at One Bills Drive. But,
Walter S. says the Chargers signing a 34-year-old Khalil Mack over 30-year-old Bosa. Actually, Bosa's 29. Is a huge warning flag to me. Who knew him better, and they chose Mack and paid him more at $18 million than we did at $12 million. Well, clearly availability is the best ability. But even as we talk about this, and maybe you two could speak to it as it pertains to, what John Harbaugh is looking for in that locker room from a leadership presence from Khalil Mack. There's an aspect as well. When I think of playing the Chargers, which we have recently, Bosa's the guy that I worry about. I wasn't overly worried about Khalil Mack. Bosa is that guy that's on the field that plays with reckless abandon. Brandon Beane talked about it. It'll be interesting to see what they do or how they coach him to kind of maybe help him preserve himself, because that reckless abandon he plays with is a big part of his game and who he is and how he is effective in a football game. But this doesn't make me nervous.
And here's the other thing too, Joe, that people need to talk about. Did Joey want to be a Charger anymore? Did the Chargers want him?
Right.
Probably mutual. Mack signed after Bosa. Most of the I believe that. Now, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Mack signed after Bosa. But at that point in time, Chargers needing a defensive end and those defensive end positions being signed up quickly, you're going to pay a little bit more to get a guy because you don't want him to go somewhere else and you're between a rock and a hard place. So you've got to look at the full scenario of the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Sidebar real quick, as John Fina puts in the comments section on YouTube. Thank you. He's talking to somebody in the chat. See you in Rochester.
Yankee.
Yeah. Oh, Yankee. See you in Rochester for garbage plates. Nick Tahoe's. We are trying to work out the opportunity for the three of us to spend some quality time in Rochester at training camp. And Chris is in Rochester, but to everybody else listening, watching, whatever, be prepared, because if we can work this out, we're going to spend a decent amount of time in Rochester this year at training camp and probably do some outings and do some stuff at camp and maybe do some interviews with those of you that have been, watchers or followers of this network since we started in April. It hasn't even been a year yet. We're approaching a year.
I know, it's crazy.
Our first year in the business, but we've got some things planned for training camp if it works out. So stay tuned for that.
It feels like 18 years.
Wow.
All right, so guys, are we in agreement that we let Cook play it out?
Of all the things going on, he's like the least of my worries.
Okay,
I don't know why. I don't know why.
But
which
the math,
which would mean play it out.
Math is important to whatever
which
moves.
Would mean play it out. Let him play it out.
Okay. I feel like Benford is the more important player
for sure,
and the more important position. Clearly the number is going to be lower. So this is not going to be a popular comment or point, possibly even with you two. When I look back at, and it's probably not the greatest comparison, but when I look back at the big three, right, in the 90s, Emmitt Smith, Thurman Thomas, Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders was ridiculous, and he was on a football team that was not good and just did things that were just superhuman. Thurman Thomas was gifted and was not the fastest guy, had amazing vision. You guys both blocked for him. Emmitt Smith is the NFL's leading rusher, all-time leading rusher, and he ran through holes in Dallas that were wide enough to drive a truck through. And I feel like offensive line has to be a conversation when we're talking about James Cook. I like what James Cook brings to the table. I like what I've seen growth-wise from him from his rookie year to even this past year, and how he sets up his blocks and how he's patient. I'm just not convinced that, much like the Chiefs, that you can't do a Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. If you've got a decent offensive line and a good run scheme, that you can't plug and play guys there.
I think we'll see what the Bills are thinking as the season gets moving on. If Ray Davis gets more snaps, if Johnson gets more snaps, if these other guys are starting to get equal time, it'll be interesting to see that, because if they do, then maybe they have the same sort of theory or feeling about James Cook that some others do, as far as, yeah, we'll pay you, but we're not going to go crazy.
I'm trying to think of how I want to set it up. James Cook is not Saquon Barkley. And I don't mean that from a sense that Saquon just got $20 million a year. Saquon is a guy that you put him in any offense and he's Saquon Barkley, right? Barry Sanders, you put him in any offense, he's Barry Sanders. I'm not necessarily, I mean, James Cook is he's a nice player. He's a nice fit. I'm just not sure that even a guy like Ty Johnson or Ray Davis, right, couldn't be successful behind, or another guy that I don't know what you guys think, but he doesn't strike me as like, let's sell out to James Cook for $15 million a year.
Yeah.
What's the max you pay? What's the max you're paying him?
9. I mean, I'm of the opinion you just come out at some point and say that, and you don't do it too close to the season, right? You want this vinegar taste in the mouth to dissipate. You get to him, you say, look, this is it. This is our best and final. Mm-hmm. We love you. This is our best and final. And then you don't have any more conversations.
Unfortunately for fans, and it's hard for them to understand this concept, but there's only so much money to go around. You can't pay everybody what the market value is, or you can't pay everybody what you feel they deserve. Mm-hmm. You saw that this offseason. I'm sure they would have loved to have had Matt Collins back. He made exponentially more money in New England than he probably would have made with us. Mm-hmm. So it's just the way the business is. The business is the business, and you're going to have money to pay guys, and you've got to be frugal with who you pay, because when you overpay for people just because they're fan favorites, you lock up rosters, and next thing you know, you're having 17-year droughts, so to speak.
Scott Blakely brings up a point that you guys have talked about, that as far as James Cook, he's proven so far that he's a poor blocker. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't improve, but if it changes.
I'm going to interrupt you. 2 things. Number one, I don't ever think I've said he's a poor blocker. I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's awful. But secondly, no, you're not going to improve. Blocking, picking up linebackers from depth.
Isn't that a sellout commitment issue?
That's an attitude. That is something you had in high school, that you had in college. No, you are not going to develop that. You either got that or you don't got that.
And to bring up, because Walter's our resident pessimist,
for this show at least.
if you want to go ahead and start rating who's the best players on offense, I'll give you the top 3. And Cook's not in the top 3.
No, he's not.
The first one is Josh Allen. The second one's Deion Dawkins.
Correct.
And the third one is the right tackle, Spencer Brown. So if you want to go ahead and talk about
and
offense,
Khalil Shakir to me is
probably 4th. Yes.
Yep.
So if you want to start rating good players on offense, Cook's not in the top 4, let alone top after Josh Allen.
Yeah,
but Walter,
but I get. It's okay, Walter. You are a fan of James Cook, and we love James Cook too. We're trying to be realists. That's all.
Better than that, Walter. Thanks for throwing that out there. We're not taking digs at you. We're just disagreeing. Thanks for being in the chat, just like everybody. We really appreciate you guys' support.
At the end of the day, you want your football team to not give away bad contracts. Stephon Diggs, 4 years, $96 million. Like, I'm going to retire a Buffalo Bill. Bad contract, right? Von Miller, what was it, 4 years, $120 million, bad contract. Like James Cook, if it's 5th, I can't imagine the Bills would. I'm sure he's jockeying and positioning, and it's 15.
Yes.
He's not going to get.
And that's why I'm not excited about it. That's why I'm not excited about it. It's called negotiations. That's what you do.
But you just don't want them to sign him to a bad contract that he sees 2 years of, and then they're taking huge cap hits. Right.
In defense of Beane, okay? in defense of Beane, the Von Miller, Stephon Diggs pieces were put in place to get to the big game. Devon gets hurt, but I think what held Stephon Diggs back more than anything, we didn't have Joe Brady. I think Joe Brady's obviously doing an incredible job with what people would think is a third-tier wide receiver room. So I see why he did it. The push, like Josh has got a limited window. Here's the push, and the push didn't work out. That's injury. That's philosophy. Diggs, unfortunately, became something else and had to go away. Vaughn, of course, got injured. He has to go away. So I while I don't love the contracts, if we were sitting on the big trophy right now, we'd have been saying, what a great plan to pick those two guys up.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think not having Joe Brady as the O coordinator, and maybe he needed that extra year, and have it, Ken Dorsey with his, I think, lack of creativity, that was really the rate limiting step for the offense and Stephon Diggs.
When I look at this team, I mean, offensively, we're successful almost every damn year, right? I mean, what was last year? The most yards we've ever done. I mean, it's the most successful offense in Bills history. And every year it's the same thing. And Josh Allen breaks all these more records, and first ever. Guys, if we want to get to the next level, which is holding a Lombardi trophy, they have got to get the defense correct.
Correct.
While I love Cook, let's get the defense right and then figure out if we got enough money to sign him. If we don't sign a running back that doesn't play 3 downs, but our defense is balling, I'm willing to make that trade. That is the difference in this team losing in the playoffs and having a chance to win a Super Bowl. They've got to get better defensively, period.
Yeah.
As much as Joe may not love the Bill Belichick tree and the success, I think and it's not a dig on you, Joe. I don't disagree with you entirely.
What
Belichick did really well is he kept that damn quarterback who was smart, efficient, had some decent weapons, but on defense, they'd sign people, and I'm sure everybody on this call would be like, who? What? Well, that guy, he wasn't anything where he was last year, but he put those pieces together, the pawns, if you will, and had a very nice defense, a nice attack with guys who were, thought to be mid-tier or discarded from other teams. And I think that is a smart way to build when you have a guy like Josh Allen.
So, Walter, I love that you are active in the comment section in this program, and I want you to be here every single episode, if not at the very least, every single Sunday. However, Walter says, I love Shakir, but if we're going to question value of players and benefiting by the talent around them, who benefits more than Shakir, who is playing with the MVP? Walter, I was the guy that said, why is everybody in Bills Mafia losing their minds over a dude that had 10 receptions his rookie season? Khalil Shakir is another. He has created. There's a saying out there that your gifting will make space and make room for itself. And Khalil Shakir is that guy. He is a gifted after the catch runner, and he makes plays on the field that other guys just don't make. Khalil Shakir's talent is standing on its own, and I would dare say that if you put him on any other football team, what you watched him do last season, he would do on any other football team. Agree or disagree, fellas?
I will say this: the guy catches everything that comes his way. His catch rate is just insane.
But even after he has the football,
I'm saying the first thing you have to do is catch the ball, and he makes catches. And then after he touches the ball, Josh can't control that. That's Khalil Shakir. I mean, covered in beef tallow. By the way, Jerry, that roast I sent you, I trimmed that down. I cooked all that beef tallow down. Now I got about 2 cups of beef tallow. But that's my guy. Boise State, thrilled when we picked him up, and he's delivering. And once he gets the ball, that's no longer Josh Allen. That's Khalil Shakir, and you gotta freaking love it.
And I'm not saying that Cook has to or he doesn't have to, but I will say this: all these other guys that have re-signed lately have all signed for team-friendly contracts. They haven't beat the table and said, I need to get this amount of money.
Right. I got to get us out of here. It's been 40 minutes. This has been a wildly engaging conversation and fun. For an off-season slow time where there's really nothing to talk about, this has been a very, very good conversation. We got some kind of stuff. We Overreaction Sports Network has the potential and possibility to kind of go to the next level over the next couple of weeks. With some things that are going on. However, more than that, the Big O Show has moved to Wednesdays for those of you that have been hiding under a rock. Same time, same show, just now on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. Jerry, I don't know if you want to talk this week about what you're going to be talking about real quick.
We're going to talk about the draft. And who's coming on with me again, Joe?
Joe DeLeon.
Joe DeLeon.
Where do we find him?
From the Believe Network. He's coming on to talk about the draft. Also, folks, be on the lookout for another show. We call it a show. It's going to be a quick 10 to 15 minute conversation or hit every day. It will be probably known as the Overreaction Buffalo Daily. And we're going to talk Bills news from the day. And so be on the lookout for that. So every morning you'll be able to pop onto the podcast and on your way to work, throw that in and catch the news from the prior day and just what went down in Buffalo when it pertains to the Bills. So, yeah, we got a lot going on this offseason.
Yeah, and this Tuesday on the beat, we've got Ryan Talbot from the Shout Buffalo podcast. The other half of the Shout Buffalo podcast, Ryan Talbot, will be joining us on Tuesday. But super, super good conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Podcast Network. It is so good to have had all of you joining us. Great conversation in the comment section. The comments were flying, and a whole bunch of you are telling us what a great show this was. And we just want you to know how much we appreciate your commitment to watching us, to listening to us, and to being a part of what we're doing. You guys are the reason we do it. You make it fun. But for me, for John, for Jerry, for all of us here at Overreaction, we'll see you Tuesday and Wednesday. We love you guys. Go Bills.
Go Bills. Like, subscribe, review, tell your friends. Walter, I love you. Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.